This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, it is 6:02. I will now call to order the April 7th meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? In the back first.
So Kathy Wazinski, 22 Overlook Drive. I wanted to just bring attention to the battery storage facility that was being proposed for Westfield. It poses a significant risk to our water source, given that they're planning to put it right on top of the Barnes Aquifer. In New York, 50% of the lithium battery storage facilities caught on fire in 2023. They cannot be put out. There's no way of putting them out, so they just burn. The Moss Landing fire in California in January burned for 5 days, polluting soil and water several towns away. We can't afford to lose our only water source. I have information for anybody that might like it. Thank you.
Thank you. As that project's in Westfield, this commission has no direct authority over it, but we thank you for your comment and your concern. In the front, introduce yourself for the record, please.
Yeah, I'm Kelly Vogel. I'm a resident of Easthampton, and I am here because I'm as well as many other local residents have been disappointed by the closure of access to the North Branch Manhan River on Loudville Road, Drury Lane, in 2024, and would very much like to have that restored. The New England Forestry Foundation, NEF, manages that forest area along Loudville Road. I know many of you are familiar with them. They manage that forest along Drury Road, Mine Road, Lead Mine Street, and Mineral Streets. These forests are in Easthampton, Southampton, and Westhampton, and are visited, as many may know, by a large and diverse group of people. Many residents and users in this area understand that NEF owns the land and that mineral digging has been problematic and does need oversight. ECC heard about this from local residents earlier this year, and it was in the Gazette as well. Still, many residents are really interested in having access to the river. I've been connecting with neighbors over the last year or so. And I have at least 30 emails from people who are in the area and who have been sending their comments and sharing their interest in having this area restored. And some of those people are here tonight. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to. Oh, good. Okay, thank you for being here. So those are some of the people who are aware that I was coming tonight and wanted to come and show their support. So thank you so much. Again, we would like to have access to it and to the Manhan River for hiking and for observing nature. There are some ironies related to the closure. One of the, well, first of all, we understand that the mining is why it was closed. But in addition, and sort of as a parallel story, NEF has also done a lot of harvesting in the area through a lot of its forests, and that does include forests nearby river access in Easthampton. Much of that harvesting has itself created a lot of erosion, has decimated a lot of very large trees, and has also ruined access to a number of the trails there. So while NEF might say that, you know, this is a trail that is closed, but you can use our other trails, many of those are no longer accessible because of the harvesting that they themselves have done through 2023 and 2024. So again, understanding that this is all private property and we're lucky to have any of this access. Residents are interested in finding a viable way to access, to support next usage of the land. I guess like two questions that I want to present, or maybe for further thought, are: can the ECC work with NEF to restore access to the river? And only tonight am I aware that there is an ongoing sort of agenda item. So I'm happy to see that, interested in how that goes over the next couple of months. And also, might local residents help manage or get permission to manage some of these areas along the river, working together as multi-use trails? I know there are mountain biking groups that are actively doing some of the trail maintenance, etc. So is there a way for multiple groups to support NEF in their management of the land, have access, and kind of create a solution that works, you know, for everyone? So those are sort of two open-ended questions. I don't necessarily expect to have an answer tonight, but I'm just posing those questions, and I'm interested in having this as a larger agenda item going forward. So just gonna drop that in the bucket.
Thanks for your comments. This, as you noted, it is private property. So this commission has no authority over how that property is or is not permitted for public access.
Yeah.
We were not responsible for the closure. That was a decision that NEF made in response to the degradation that was going on. There was an enforcement order that the commission did issue, asking them to stop the digging. And so that is where the decision for closure came from. That enforcement order has been satisfactorily responded to and lifted, so that it's not in place. And there is now a restoration plan that NEF has been permitting. And so that is the extent of our jurisdiction, I guess, over this. Is the first the enforcement order, which is now closed, and then the open permit that was requested for restoration. So I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to reach out to them directly. I do know that they understand and are interested in people's concerns, and I believe they're working to open alternate access routes. There's a secondary access that I think they're hoping to publicize more clearly, but for the time being, my understanding is that they're going to keep the other side closed.
When you say the other side, is that the
Loudville
access side? Okay.
Yeah.
Or the Mineral Street, off of Mineral Street.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the one that is potentially going to be, oh, it is open.
It is
actually.
open.
Yeah, but it's, yeah, access to the river is a little trickier, but, okay. So that's the open permit on that side, just so it's clear. Got it. And the restoration plan, you said it has to do with the mineral area and the digging.
Right.
Currently.
Has to do with reseeding and replanting some vegetation in that area.
That's
And just to that note, I did receive some information that might be useful for you from NEF today about that they're planning a community walk and spring trail cleanup day on Saturday, May 17th, to invite people to get to know the open trails off of Mineral Street.
great.
So, glad to announce that later, but yeah, some information.
For that.
Yep.
I'll pass it along too.
Yeah, please do. Great. Thank you for your comment.
Any other non-agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move on to public hearings. Our first item on the agenda is a public hearing for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by GZA Geoenvironmental on behalf of Crown Meadow Corporation at Holly Circle and Crestview Drive, map 166, lots 75 through 80, 83 through 89, and map 171, lots 14-1, 14-2, 15 through 22, and 25 through 29. This is DEP file number 1510327. I believe we have someone here to speak for this item.
I have a bunch of of our comments. I don't know if you want a copy.
Sitting on someone I own. Becky, is there anything you'd like to put up on the screen?
pull up the memo so then we could see both, Goddard's comments and GZA's?
Okay. If Commission wanna have Steve from Goddard is also here. Do you want Steve to present his comments first?
Yeah, I guess, what do you want?
Yeah, but
First.
if you were planning to dive right into a response, then
Yeah.
we should hear first from Steve.
Okay, yeah.
No. Steve, you have the floor if you.
Oh, thank you. Can you guys hear me? So I'm not talking into a void.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So do you want me to I could do like a high level, just go over everything quickly, or like do like detailed, go through everything? But I'll leave it up to your time constraints and how you want me to kind of tackle it or present it.
Has the commission all had a chance to review the letter? So I'd say we have a basic understanding, Steve, so you don't need to go into great detail on everything, but
Great.
certainly hit the highlights.
Yeah, I'll cover the high points. I mean, in general, I went into this like, oh, it's probably going to be a very simple, review. It looked like it on the face of it, but when you get into it, things get a little bit more murky, which probably hence why you wanted the peer review in the first place. In general, I think there were some minor flag moves, which I think are very basic type of things, which I don't think really affect any potential projects out there. They're all relatively minor, and we can go back and forth a little bit if we need to on moving a flag 5 feet or 10 feet. That really wasn't a big deal to me. That was all. I think the delineation, other than a couple tweaks, was pretty straightforward. Like most of my comments were related to that up front, and then I got into like reviewing the stream's perennial status, and I think just overall general, just my assessment of it. Yeah, the stream probably is intermittent, but I can only go by what's in the presentation material to look at it, not kind of like my gut feeling on what it probably is. So based on that, there were some things that I thought were a little bit ambiguous on where some of the photos were taking or what they're looking at. So that, coupled with some of the evidence that I saw in the field, and Eva was there as well to kind of like see the same things that we saw out there, kind of made me just ask some more questions. We'll just put it that way. And I think we could see where it goes from there. But I think the upper half of the stream, maybe from flag R10 to, up to the upgrading of that, is clearly intermittent. It's very ill-defined channel, not much evidence of flow. Down from flag 10 down, there were some areas that are, we've got this big pool of water. I talk about it a little bit in my review, kind of how it gets there, why is it there, does it provide hydrology down gradient of that? That's kind of I think the gist of what kind of my assessment was, kind of looking at those things, and I think asking for more clarification on mostly station number 4, because that's the one most proximal to that area of standing water that's you can see in the field, assuming it's still there now. It was there when we were there, and we saw flow while we were there in the field on the day, a couple weeks ago. We're still in the drought period. We saw flow at that point. But other than that, most of the stuff, I think is pretty straightforward. I can leave it there. We can go into more detail on some of the points. It's up to you guys.
I think it'd be helpful, for me at least, for you to go into more detail on your observations of the stream.
Yeah, for sure. So like with the stream, the most up gradient parts, where the flags kind of come to a point. I forgot the exact flag numbers. Oh, right there. There was a defined channel. We think it extended off the site from what we saw in the field now, knowing that, yeah, right there, like, yeah, right in there. Because we saw the channel continuing, I guess that's southward, off the parcel, which would then project buffer a little bit farther onto that potential lot 111. Not by much, but it's just an ANRAD, so you want the delineation to be accurate. But it's intermittent. I think it's very clearly intermittent there. There wasn't a lot of staking in the field, so what I had to do was look at the photos and try to geo-reference those photos to actual locations in the field, which I was able to do for most everything. You know, it took a little bit of work. You're trying to match up the tree to this tree or that shrub to that shrub. And obviously where there's hard features like culverts, it's easy to do that. When you go downstream to kind of where that ponded area is, I think is kind of in that area, and a little bit, I think, to the, I guess would be the left of there. That's where the open water parts were. It got a little more tricky because I feel like the photo, without staking, it was hard to see what angle that photo was taking it. It looked like the observer, the photo taker, was standing in the wetland, kind of facing either southish or towards the subdivision-ish based on the veg. So it's kind of, you can see that the wetland's dry and maybe part of the stream is dry, but it didn't kind of tell me if that pond behind you was dry at the time of observation, which the more I'm looking at this might be a critical element to the story, because if that was wet and there was flow coming out of it, you know, per DEP regulations, and Mark Stenson's called me on the same thing. You know, you can have a section of stream that's dry and you have a pool of water. If that pool doesn't flow anywhere, that's fine. You can have little puddles of water in a dry stream, an intermittent stream. But if there's flow between a puddle to another puddle within that stream, or just flow movement, that section from there down gradient becomes perennial. And I just couldn't see from the evidence presented if that was the case at the time of observation, because I did see that physically while we were there in the field at that location. So probably approximately from, I think it was R10 down gradient. You know, we saw some evidence. We saw pooling water. We don't know why it was pooling. You know, is it seepage? If that was a natural seep or a groundwater discharge, you know, that could be a source. It could be the start of a stream. You know, could be. I'm not. You know, I think we need more evidence to show that it was or wasn't, or is it just water that pooled up there because of the detention basin from the nearby subdivision that was created 20 years ago, and that water just kind of dumps there now. You know, and that could also still be the source of a perennial stream, all that water coming to one point. So they're down gradient that I have the most question with, and it was, you know, a little harder to reference some of the photos there, because some of the photos are, you could definitely see, okay, I can see no flow here. It's looking between the Phragmites, or the cattails, I should say. But some of them, you can't tell if there's flow or no flow in the photos. It just looked kind of like plants. But I think GZA made a reference in one of their doc submittals. I forgot if it was the first one or the second one, that they had video evidence as well. I think that might be more telling as to what's going on out there if you walk the channel front to back, filming the whole thing, which is, you know, again, DEP's held me to that standard as well, going out with the video camera and just filming the whole run just to kind of prove that it's dry. That might kind of answer the question right there. And that's kind of the gist of kind of the assessment. It's mostly about that ponded area. I don't hesitate to call it a pond, but, you know, kind of why it's there. It doesn't seem to make sense why it's there geologically. Was it an old farm pond? Is it just a really low spot in the intermittent stream? What's there? You know, there's not a dam. There's not like a constructed obstruction holding the water back, but it definitely seems like a low spot where water accumulates or forms there and then kind of moves down gradient from there, just based on, you know, the limited time I had on site to kind of assess it. So yeah, it's kind of the summation of it. You know, I put a recommendations thing at the end, but it's mostly moving some flags, getting more information on that kind of that Station 4, Station 5 area. You know, and I think one of the other potentials, and I think it's a fairly low potential, but if the stream is determined to be, well, this definitely is intermittent, and this is just a little pool of water that doesn't really come from anything or go anywhere. My next question, well, is it a vernal pool? Because we've started seeing evidence of vernal pool fauna out there 2 weeks ago, at the very beginning of vernal pool season. I wasn't looking for anything, but we heard the peepers. So there's a chance that could supply the right, you know, breeding habitat for other stuff that would be in a vernal pool. I'd leave that to GZA to take a look at it more in detail and, you know, provide the evidence one way or the other.
So could you also walk us through your recommendations, please?
Yeah. So the recommendations, let's say go to the front page there. Yeah, so I said minor adjustments to the wetland and bank lines. They're nothing, a couple of flag moves. I think I had one spot where I separated the bank away from the wetland, and another one I might have moved them together, but all these moves are pretty straightforward on the stream wetland complex. On the other side of the field where those isolated wetlands were, or I don't think they're isolated, they're probably connected off site to BBW, but there's a couple flags there I would move farther up into the field just based on soils and plants and when I was there hydrology, but I'm assuming when they delineated the hydrology of it, surface hydrology was probably completely absent would be my guess. So there's a couple moves back there. There was 2 wetlands labeled D, which is a little confusing. So maybe just rename one of them to a different letter series. I think there was a couple flag Bs in the field, like there were 2 of the same B. Yeah, there it is, B20 flag. There were 2 in the field, but you only need 1. I think one of the 2 was the more accurate representation of what flag B really was. Yeah, those other flags there are the ones I just talked about. And reevaluate that where the intermittent stream starts at flag D5, just to kind of see if there is a concentrated flow channel going off-site, which we saw in the field. And then, yeah, for the stream status, I put please provide evidence of no flow at station 4. That's the one just up gradient of that pond. Or provide more detailed evidence that station 4 had no standing water and no flowing water. And then I put the follow-up to that is provide evidence of no flow down gradient of station 4 towards station 5. I think they provided enough evidence that there wasn't flow at station 5 when they did the observations. I could see enough of that in the photos, but I don't know if there's any flow between 4 and 5. And I saw flow between 4 and 5 in the field. And then potentially a vernal pool assessment of that ponded area just to see kind of what's going on there, since it is the right time of year right now. If it was the middle of summer, I might not recommend that, but you can literally do that tomorrow at this point. I think out there, most of the critters out in the valley have started moving already. Yeah, and the last thing was, I think to me there was some ambiguity, and maybe it was just the way it was worded in one of the filings as to who took the photos. And I would just assume it was GZA, but I think there was some maybe alluding to the client may have provided some of the photos, or maybe that was just in one of the reports and not the other one, but just somebody from GZA saying, yeah, no, we took the photos and we'll sign that we took them and we were there on these days. Just to kind of put that to bed on where the photos came from. So it's from a competent source, not the applicant.
So just to clarify, Steve, am I understanding correctly that even if there is evidence of no flow below station 5 or down gradient of station 5, there could be flow from 4 to 5 that might be coming from groundwater or another source? And if so, you're suggesting that portion alone might be perennial, even if it's intermittent?
Yeah. I've been told that by DEP. I mean, if you want to talk to Mark Stenson and see his interpretation of it, I believe that's what he would say too, because if you have some puddles of standing water with no interconnectedness, that's okay. But if you've got something moving, that's the whole point of stream flow, because streams can go subsurface when you have sandy substrates, which you do have here. So there's possibility you could get some flow and then it goes underground and maybe it comes back out somewhere else. It's a big system, we're just on the upper reaches of it. And I think especially if that pond is supplied by seepage, groundwater seepage, that's even more evidence that there's something going on supplying that water, and it's a groundwater discharge area, and I think that even means more credence to that, but that would probably be more of a hydrologic study than what I would be doing, just looking at surface evidence and some topo maps and superficial geology maps.
Okay. Other questions from the commission?
So,
All right, then we'll turn it over to GBA to walk us through your responses.
People on the floor. I know we sent the report on Thursday. Has everyone been able to review? Okay, yeah. So I'll just kind of skim through it because a lot of it we're majority agreeing with Steve Riverty. We removed the B flag, B20. We relocated B11, RA9, B4. We did rename the B series on the eastern side of the property to F. So that's no longer, and I have it on our updated site plan. One there, so you can see a little bit earlier. We did see a new wetland, as Steve noted, up gradient of D5, and that we extended the bank flagging down, and we have a shelf wetland around our flag D13, and then it continues south. So I know there's a lot of questions around our photo station 4. I did send a video, and I do have at the end of the report, I have some photos where we were able to geolocate. I don't know if we could play the photo or just scroll down to the photos. Might be just best to scroll down.
You can pull up the video if you'd like.
Yeah, maybe start with the photos. But we were able to see 2 trees that were taken. Yeah, those are really good. Yeah, so this photo was taken on last September. So you could see these 2 trees in the background, and on property, our photo station 4 was right here and looking into the ponded area. So you could clearly see these 2 trees. This is where the said ponded area is currently, but this was taken in September of last year. So you could see that a little bit. You can see there's no water here. And then as you scroll down, I went out there last week and you could see this 2 same trees. And I have a video where you could zoom in and you could clearly see the current ponded water here. Yeah. Sorry. It's hard to see in this one, but the video you could zoom in, but you could see that little V shaped right there. And then if you scroll up, same tree. So
Would the commission like to review the video?
I think that would be helpful.
yeah, the video shows like a whole, and you could see on just noticing the vegetation on that side. And if you go back to all the photo station 4s, you could see it's just clearly different vegetation because when we play the video, there's a lot of invasives on the other side, and it's just very scraggly looking. Where the photos of photo station 4 were pointed, you could see the tussock sedge where the water currently is, but water was not there last September. And this video, yeah, you could, it's RA 13, I believe. So,
RA 13.
Which is where?
right here. Okay. And this is looking like this way. So like northwest, not south. If it was looking south, there's also a ponded area, but it's not looking southeast, which is upland. So yeah, or 13, looking out, and then yeah, just. So I'm looking over here at the start. You can see that is, I believe, maybe R12, R11 bank side. And then as we turn, you're looking into the ponded area to the south. Now we're looking to the west. That's R13. You can see those 2 trees. I zoom in. That's the ponded area right there. You can see all the tussock sedge right there. That's in all of the Station 4 photos. And you could see the surrounding background, which I believe is red maple and birch. And then as you continue the video, You could just see the difference in vegetation type. It's pretty scraggly looking. There's less vegetation. You don't see the fall colors that you would see if he was taking it the other side. So if you want to pull up Station 4 from last September.
Is that the only video that you have?
That was the one that I took last week. I did provide all of the videos and photos taken to Ava, and all of the photos and videos were taken from Matt. I did accompany him on September 20th to make sure that he was going to all the right locations, and he was. So that's why he continued, but I believe that, you know, Matt is competent in the regulations. It doesn't state that it has to be a wetland scientist. It specifically states that the Conservation Commission determines who is competent, and I don't see why that would not be. I did accompany him. I did determine he was going to all the locations correctly. He was taking the photos. You could clearly geo-reference the photos, especially now Station 4 with that. So there should be no reason why he's not considered a competent source.
And this is for the record, I'm Adrienne Dunn from GZA. I'm here with Jackie. Right, GZA interpreted the photos in light of the regulations. And so Matt, the property owner, took the photographs, but was not making determinations about the regulations and their applicability.
He just sent them to me.
The joint effort.
Joint effort, yes. But Matt can contest that he was there and he took the photos. And there was no water there, and you can see him there. Any questions on that specific? You want to see for location 4, we
You have a, so the other photos are dated 4/2. Do you have a April photo for that area?
For this location.
Yes.
Yeah, it's this one right here.
yeah, it's that one right there.
Oh, it's the same one. Okay.
Yeah. So that's April, and that was from September. Just to kind of geo-reference some trees in the background, because there was some confusion of it was pointing in the wrong direction. But once you see those tussocks, and just because we have the trees, the rest of the photos determine that it's in the correct location.
You have more comments you want to go through yet?
Yeah. So that was the comment, let's see, on the stream flow. So since we didn't see stream flow in September, this most means, meets the definition of an intermittent stream. There are some questions on vernal pool. We did, when I did went there, go back last week, I have some photos, did observe vernal pool species of wood frog. There's probably 100 plus egg masses. In determining a vernal pool, they cannot have a permanent outlet. They can overflow during, rain events, but to be determined a vernal pool, there's no permanent outlet, which we do see in this area. Other comments? I believe most of them were just determining, if photo station 4 was correct, which we clearly see with the video and the geo-referencing. We do believe it meets more of the definition of a vernal pool. A perennial stream. Yes, are there any other questions on or more? If anyone has a specific peer review question, I can talk about it more.
But from the evidence of that really low depressional area with wood frog eggs and no clearly defined outlet, it seems, while odd, more likely that it's a vernal pool along an intermittent stream based on no flow observed downstream of it, no clear outlet, and no multi-class 8-page fish population, and the presence of vernal pool species. So kind of an odd configuration, but that's what the observed evidence is pointing to currently.
Sorry, I may have misheard. I think you just characterized it as a vernal pool and you had said it had a permanent outlet, so it can't be a vernal pool. Did
No,
I mishear?
I said it does not have a permanent, vernal pools cannot have a permanent outlet, so that's what we believe. It does not have a permanent outlet.
Okay, I misheard
Yeah,
you then.
sorry. Sorry, misinterpreted. Because you can see, you know, like you saw during the site walk, not the site walk, during the peer review, there was a 1-inch rain event 2 days prior, so it makes sense why there was a lot of water. And when a week later, when we had the commission walk, there was no flow in that area, and we did not see water between photo station 4 and 5, which, you know, so can it overflow? Certainly, yeah. Certainly with enough water, yep. But, and we do understand we're in a drought right now, but you know, that's just going to show during a high flow rate that water comes through and then it leaves the system. And it pools in the lower depressional area, which the vernal pool species were found. And then I have a bunch of photos of relocated flags and the updated map. And I think just to, since I think you went through it, but quickly, there was no, we weren't investing, relocating any of the flags that Goddard suggested. We weren't quibbling like 5 feet versus 10 feet or 7 feet. We just moved them. And added the wetland to the south. Yeah. Yeah.
So do we have a video that actually goes down the channel?
No, we did, it's pretty difficult to walk out there as like the commission member saw, so we did it's not required to do a video, you're supposed to have sections, you know, it's not required in the regulations to show an entire video from point A to point B. We did it as in photo stations.
Wasn't that the recommendation from DEP though, Ava, or am I misremembering?
It's a recommendation, not a requirement. And we interpreted it as, you know, it's very difficult to walk out there. So photo stations in specific areas seem sufficient. And I do have
these were DEP's original comments.
I don't know if you have them.
Free.
So in the last sentence, and you've spoken with Mark directly about this, right?
Yes, but not recently.
Am I understanding his last sentence there correctly, that their recommendation would be that we only consider the specific areas that we see in the photo or video to be intermittent, and everything else we would leave as perennial, so we'd have this sort of chopped up mishmash?
I mean, that's my interpretation of the sentence as well.
Because what I don't think we have, if I'm following the video that you showed correctly, we don't have anything from that section from 4 to 5 that is the piece in question, correct?
We have a photo pointing this way where the supposed water pooling is.
And
That
where
was
is
shown.
5?
5 is 4 points from here to here, 5 points. You know, we got both directions.
And what's the scale of that?
This is 60 feet.
2 an inch. Or from 4 to 5 is 60 feet.
It's about an inch.
So it's several hundred feet from 4 to 5.
$100, then probably like,
So we're certainly not seeing that whole section in the photo. to use that, obviously.
We have videos we could play too.
The videos from 2024. Yeah. If you know,
Goes in all directions.
right, if you know which ones, Jackie, I'm happy to.
18th or 20th, since we were there.
Okay.
So I know we started off in the south. Nope, yeah, that,
This would be the south.
Yeah.
But maybe,
are you trying to play the videos or?
well, sure. I didn't know if we wanted to go through each one.
And 5 is south of 4?
5 is here, 4 here.
Yeah, but in terms of directionality, is that south?
That's north,
North.
but it's
5 is
flowing
north.
south to north.
Yeah.
correct?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we could go to the later videos.
Which one? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Apologies.
That one. That one.
1422.
Yeah, do that
We
one.
can list the images
Yeah.
next too. Okay, so now we're in the
Yeah, that's at 5.
Okay.
That's please. That would give you a show of looking south. Oh, or not. Maybe a different one.
Steve, have you seen all of these and had an opportunity to review them?
No, I haven't seen any of this. Other than now on the screen, but I'm squinting a little bit to see it.
Right, yeah.
So this is 4. I guess we can take a look at those trees again.
Yeah,
There's those 2 trees that you've seen.
Jackie, when were these taken? Were these taken when you guys did the stream, when the same time as you did the photos?
this is, yeah, September 15th
Okay.
to 20th of 2024.
Oh, great.
So now we're moving south on the site.
And I think
Correct.
I think we're now moving between
Or
reading and 4.
Okay, great.
So I think we just saw what we have from this day between 4 and 5. Which is just this video, which we watched. And then now we're at 5.
Mhm.
I'm happy to pull up a different day
Yeah,
too.
we could go to a different one. So are you saying that you would only say it's interpret what's in the photos? Because I'm a little confused because it doesn't specifically say that in the regulations. It's just basically EP comment.
That's ultimately up to you guys as the commission on how you interpret it. Some towns
Yeah.
are very persnickety and want to do it every little inch, and some towns are okay with a lesser level of effort with some assumptions in between. So that's ultimately your guys' call as the commission. I can offer some input if you want, but it's ultimately your decision. Mark's leaving it to you guys.
Yeah, we would certainly be interested in your input. I don't think we've really dealt with this particular situation, at least not in a long time. So, and we know this stream has been a question mark for a long time. It's come up numerous times, different sections. It's a weird system.
Yeah.
So we're definitely interested in what your opinions are as our expert eyes on the ground.
And there are weird streams. I mean, I've seen plenty in my career too. Not everything's just on a perfectly even gradient, and you can just look at dry on A and look at dry on B and just assume everything in between A and B is dry just because of the gradient.
Right.
This is weird with that little ponded area in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's promising. I think, what Jackie is showing is kind of filling in some blanks for me, which is, it's good. And it's, glad she did it and re-referenced the photo. So now I know where I'm kind of staring with the tree reference. I think that's good information.
So have you seen enough in these? And I know you're squinting at them. So if we need to send them over and have you look more close.
I mean, if you want me to, I can take a look at them and kind of like look at them, like I can look at all of them and like I'm walking down the stream on the different days kind of thing. And I think I've been there enough to kind of see these different spots and kind of remember where they are because it wasn't that long ago. But yeah, what Jackie's showing now is kind of supporting what I assumed out there. It's an intermittent stream with a vernal pool in the middle of it. That's kind of what I thought. And it's kind of what it's looking like, looking at the videos and the photos. So.
Questions from the commission?
So,
I think I would feel more comfortable just having Steve have an opportunity to review all the videos and look at them not on a small screen and make sure that everything is fitting together as he thinks it is. That makes sense to both.
Sense to me, right.
Okay. Can we have you take a look at those, Steve?
Yeah, I don't know the best way to get them. I'm sure these are like terabytes of information, like when I film things. I don't know if it's on your SharePoint or something where the other stuff was before and I can just download them.
In his email, I can add him to the doc.
Great. Yep. Yeah, I can do that, Steve. Jackie has to share them with you directly because these are directly linked to my email account. As they are right now.
Yeah, I can see her response letter too. I'll take a look at it. It looked good from what I saw, but
Yep. And then if that is where we land, that we have an intermittent stream with a vernal pool, what would your recommended next steps be as far as documenting the vernal pool and how we would move forward there?
I mean, now's the time of year to delineate the upper limits of the flooded area, which is the maximum extent of the pool. You could probably do that, now with the high water. Maybe be a little bit generous on some staining and other evidence of hydrology. If it looks like the water on a wetter year gets a little bit higher, I can see on some of those tussocks, the water's probably 6-ish inches higher on a normal wet year. Just looking at that from 10 million miles away. And then once you have the extent of the vernal pool, I don't know if your bylaw regulates vernal pools any differently than anything else. This is just the ANRAD portion of it. You always have some range and, maybe looking for some mitigation opportunities, if an NOI comes in for a project to kind of enhance vernal pool upland habitat, where I think there's probably a lot of opportunity here given all the invasives and the old agricultural nature of the site.
And these are my images projected right now of a site visit where I noticed the same vernal pool, the same amphibian breeding evidence.
It's a lot more extensive than I thought from the earlier pictures we were looking at.
Yeah, the pool is quite large, but does shift sizes, and I've seen it different sizes when I've been out there on different days.
Is that tree on the left, is that the same one we were kind of looking through in some of your pictures? Maybe we were on the other side looking.
Yes,
We were over
that's
there.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we were right there at that tree.
Yeah, that's where this
taking
was.
a picture.
Yeah, okay, so the two
Right
trees are
behind.
over
That
here
tree
somewhere.
is right there.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
there.
We can a bunch of images when I was out there.
There's a lot of egg masses.
There's a lot of egg masses.
And this vernal pool is on someone else's land. So I don't know how much GZA would want to certify a pool on someone else's property.
This is on Fiscomate.
Which we have permission to certify vernal pool on their property. But the commission could proceed with that. I mean, it's separate to the commission,
Yeah.
how they would like to proceed and who they would like to do the certification, but
Okay,
I could gather evidence for that too, to submit to Natural Heritage.
okay.
So this is the wood frog egg masses all laid in one large batch. Yeah, Jackie said 100, I estimated. I stopped counting.
That's a lot, yeah.
20, and then I saw like a lot, and I was like, 100. You only need like 5.
You can stop counting when you get that high. Yeah, you don't need that much to certify it.
Yeah, so we're looking, this is like another part of the pool. The pool, I'm trying to see if I have a good shot that shows the whole length of the pool. I mean, this shows a lot of it.
Yeah,
The-
wireless extends from a little before RA17 to kind of this area.
And it's all on the west side of your
Mostly
line?
over here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not really close to this side. It's mostly pooled. Like there.
And the egg masses are roughly in the center of the vernal pool, like
Lengthwise.
lengthwise.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This pool is much longer than it is wide.
Mhm.
And I did conduct, a somewhat extensive survey, looking for other egg masses, and I did only find these. So I didn't find any evidence of salamander breeding.
And we know this is official because you're using your certified vernal pool clipboard.
Most people have them.
Yeah.
So hard to see, but they're all in there.
But you can't be a vernal pool in a perennial stream. So,
Okay. So it seems like next steps are to get the additional photo and video material over to Steve along with your response letter, so he can take a look at that. But it sounds like we're generally moving towards everybody being in agreement as to what we're seeing. That's my reflecting accurately from your perspective and yours, Steve?
Yep.
All right, sounds good. Anything else you would recommend right now, Ava?
I think there's maybe a public comment if you'd like to hear that.
I have a couple of questions.
Introduce yourself for the record, please.
I'm sorry, my name is Jeff Cooter, 12 Laurel Drive,
Mhm.
Easthampton. A couple of questions. September of 2024, and you did all the photos there. When was the drought? When did we declare drought?
October.
October 1st is the date
October 1st,
effective of the drought.
15 days before that.
Drought's not a drought.
Okay, just
Yep.
pointing that out. Because if Steve saw possibly flow during an extreme drought,
It rained 2 days prior and it,
well, but still in an extreme drought.
Mhm. And the water went away.
the water-
But yes.
Okay, just pointing out. Matter of technicality,
Yep.
I would argue that there still needs to be a little more observations made of this situation. The other question is relocation of B11. How far did you move B11?
I believe it was 17 feet.
17.
He recommended, I believe, 10.
Okay, and your
I just eyeballed it. I didn't measure it off.
movement of 17 feet was based on what?
It's based on vegetation, topography, and hydric soil.
Okay, so what vegetation?
There was sensitive fir, there was tussock, like maple. Don't have all of the data, but
Skunk cabbage?
I'm sure there was probably skunk cabbage.
Okay,
Look at the
'cause
photos. I got
my
a photo of it.
my observation
Yeah.
on the second
Mhm.
was that there was quite a bit of skunk cabbage visible there.
On what
Yeah,
side?
around B11.
Yeah. This
East
is
of
all
B11.
wetland. Yep, over here.
Yeah.
But Steve is the peer reviewer, he recommended and we did a follow-up.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking
Recommendation.
about the specific follow-up, but can you answer that
Yeah.
for the most part?
Mhm.
That's it.
Jeffrey, would you like your public comment that you said to me? Would you like me to read that into the record or?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I read that as
Please,
well?
yep.
Okay. Jeffrey sent me this comment on April 3rd. I'm writing to you to comment on the report issued by Stephen Riverty on March 27th, 2025. I was able to tag along with Mr. Riverty and his crew when he performed the site visit on March 19th, 2025. I'm also generally familiar with the White Brook Conservation Area due to my recent volunteer work with PCT. I believe that the review performed by Steve was thorough, and I commend the commission for hiring Goddard Consulting to perform the review. I generally agree with this statement. I agree with this statement. In general, the delineation of the wetland and stream was straightforward and generally seemed accurate as defined in the field. However, I also agree that, as described in the report, the wetland areas at flag B11 should be reevaluated and potentially moved approximately 10 feet up gradient. When Mr. Riverty visited the site in March, the skunk cabbage had just emerged in the area. Upon my return on April 1st, it was evident that there's a large cluster of skunk cabbage in the area around the marker, and the growth of skunk cabbage extends eastward within 10 to 15 feet of the property boundary. Given the status as an obligate wetland plant, the presence in this area clearly supports the observations made on the 19th that the wetland should be extended by at least 10 feet. Thus, I support the recommendation that the area be reflagged to more accurately reflect the border of the wetland. Given the emergence of skunk cabbage, I also suggest the review be performed in the next few weeks before other vegetation emerges and possibly obscures the appearance of this indicator plant, which is highly visible at this time. The review discusses at great length the questions as to whether White Brook is a perennial stream. When I visited the site in July 2024, there was clearly some flow through the culvert under Crestview Drive. By the end of the summer, as we entered drought conditions, the flow in the culvert had ceased. I would agree that it is possible that the brook may only be perennial in portions that are north of the Crestview crossings, nearer to Hawley Circle. Given the significance of the classification of the brook to future development, to further development in the area, I also support the recommendation that further study be performed. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Let me go back to that for just a second.
Yep.
Keep all my dates and observations straight. So this was July 24 and these photos are September.
Right. As the commission recalls, we had a pretty wet spring last year, then an early summer that dried out into a dry end of summer into autumn, right, into the drought we're currently in.
Thank you. All right, I think we have our next steps. Any further comments?
I would just like to it seems like the next steps have to do with just continuing to clarify this from station 4 to 5 and the vernal pool section, but just wanted to see if there are other outstanding questions on any of the other wetland areas, or if the next meeting would be focused like solely on this last question, just so we can make sure to be prepared to answer anything else.
I think it seems like all of the flagging issues, everybody's in agreement now. Everybody meaning GZA and Goddard. So I don't anticipate any further discussion there, but Steve hasn't had a chance to look at your response letter yet. And I hadn't either before this meeting. I don't know if, I'm not sure. It wasn't sent out, right? Because you don't work Fridays. Yeah, so none of us had seen this, so we just need to look it over in detail, but it seems like everything's in agreement there. So I think the focus really is the stream. And it seems like it's primarily that section.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you everyone for your time. So we'll need a motion to continue to, what's our next
April
date?
28th, motion to continue to April 28th at 6 p.m. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. So we'll continue on April 28th.
And that's in 3 weeks, just a note for all involved. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Just to confirm with the commission, do you want me to take any further steps regarding the limit of the rental pool?
They could just,
I would say. No, I will confirm with the but somebody should get out there while we're at the right time and document fully. So whether that's you, whether that's them.
Yep.
But let's make sure we've got that data so that if we do declare it, we haven't missed the window. Do you, want to keep this one?
Yeah, let's keep a copy. That would be great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Good night. I'll take off.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
All right, our next item is a public hearing for a notice of intent filed by the Berkshire Design Group on behalf of the Community Builders, Inc. for a new housing development at 385 Main Street, map 154, lot 32-1. This is Mass DEP file number 1510330. Did they have a request to continuance?
They have requested a continuance to the May 12th meeting.
May 12th. Do we have any updates? They're still revising.
They're still revising. The only update I have is, and I have not seen a plan, and so I know no more than this, but that there is likely to be a reduction in scope.
Okay.
And that's it. That's all I know.
Okay. So can we have a motion to continue to May 12th?
I move that we continue this item to May 12th. at 6
Second.
p.m.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We have no requests for certificates of compliance this evening, so we'll move on to enforcement actions. Ava, do we have updates on any of these four?
I guess the only update I have is that, per a discussion I had with 476 East Street in the fall, I reached out to Wanzik's nursery to get a quote for them for the tree plantings that the commission has required them to do. Just to remind the commission, this is that strip with the intermittent stream. There was discussion as to whose property the intermittent stream was on, but the trees were cut along the stream. And so the commission is requiring the replanting of trees. And so we're waiting on that quote.
One out of curiosity, are you getting that quote instead of the owner responsible?
The owner previously had made other planting choices, had planted 50 balsam firs, and had claimed that it was too expensive to find the trees that the commission had required in the enforcement plan and the enforcement order. So I'm just giving the landowner a hand
Trying to
here.
help it move in the right direction.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And
All
to
right.
figure out if we can get some species that are actually going to survive there.
Great. Thank you. No other enforcement updates?
No other enforcement updates.
Okay, on to open space updates then. Any updates there?
Yeah, the updates I have on open space have to do with Oliver Street. So a couple notes about Oliver Street. I spoke more with Al Donahue, the cyclist who brought this to our attention. The commissioners may have seen that I shared in our ongoing project updates that this Oliver Street parcel is featured in a professional cycling video. Just further evidence that some famous cyclists use this. The video is Curtis White is a very famous cyclocross national champion. Curtis White's secret training ground, and that is our Conservation Commission owned parcel. So anyways, that's cool and interesting. I have a little bit more information actually, and let me see if I can pull that up, about how this land came to the Conservation Commission and whether or not we own the land in Northampton. I have not fully confirmed that we do own the land in Northampton, but it is still looking in that direction.
Are you working with Sarah LaValle on that?
She's been challenging to get a hold of, but I have an outgoing call to her and Tom who works under her.
Anisi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anisi, yep. Let me just pull this up. Check it out. Okay, we've got ourselves a 1902 deed.
What?
Deeding, I believe this land to the inhabitants of the town of Easthampton. So spent a while at the Registry of Deeds. Was able to find this via the name Julia Joy, which was linked on one of, I think on Northampton's assessor's map as the only previous owner of the parcel from 1902. So what's challenging about this description of the land is it doesn't give us a ton to go off of. It's easterly by a road, northerly by a road.
It's 1902.
I don't know which roads were here in 1902.
It does clearly state though that part of it's in Northampton, so
Right.
that
Yes.
does point in the right direction, as you said.
I will note that this deed is for more. This deed is much larger, or this deed refers to more land than we have here, containing both pieces containing 70 acres, more or less.
Okay.
So I have a couple thoughts about that, and I haven't done enough research to find that they fully add up to 70 acres. Remember that we're working with about 19 acres here, 8 in Easthampton, 10 in Northampton, but I believe fully managed by the Conservation Commission. However, the land just to the east of there is also city land, is where the old town dump is, where the brush dump is, where there's now solar. So I'm wondering if perhaps that land was included in it. There's other agricultural land around. It's hard to know exactly because what our boundaries are: a road, a road, a road. Right. So, but I was hopeful when I found this, particularly because it explicitly states that it in Northampton, that there's land that was given to the town of Easthampton that's also in Northampton.
Have you ever used the is it Sanford, the old insurance maps?
Yeah, that's right. Sanford maps.
No.
I wonder if those would go back to
Yeah.
this time period. They might show
I didn't think of that.
they might show the parcels.
Sanford.
And owners. I think it's Sanford. Is
Yeah,
that
I think
right?
that's correct, yeah.
SANFORD.
I think that's
If
correct.
it's not that, it's something very similar to that. There could be another letter in there that I'm forgetting, but I
Sounds
think
right.
it's Sanford.
Sounds right.
Great. Awesome.
And there's
Church people kept track of things better.
yeah.
Totally.
There's sites where you can they'll run a whole search for you. It's not free. It costs a few $100s, but that's the only way I've ever accessed them before. I'm not sure how you get access to them on your own.
For free.
Yeah,
Okay, that's good to know.
but they're definitely out there. I mean,
Okay.
they're probably like on file with the library or something somewhere. I don't know, UMass maybe in the archives.
Okay. Okay.
If you really want to go on
If I really
our
wanna try.
space.
Well,
But I'm sure somebody in the planning department probably knows how to get to them.
yes,
I know
right.
I've
And I
looked
think
at
if we have,
I've never had to pay for them, so there's still
Okay, so
maybe
there's
some.
they're somewhere.
Okay,
Maybe some
there's
ways
some
of
way to
getting
access
to
that.
it, because.
great. I also think if we can get some confirmation from Northampton Conservation
Yeah.
Department that they know this land and that they agree that it's owned by the town of Easthampton, then we can proceed with
Yep.
that probably.
Yep.
There is a bit of a question, I will say, like this land was not given to the Conservation Commission.
No.
Obviously, you didn't exist yet. So this is land that is given to the town, which we have other town land. Many parcels of town land are explicitly sort of under the jurisdiction of a department, right? Either they're like under DPW or they're under parks or they're under Concom. This land isn't under anyone. So that's
Okay.
just something else to note. And it does not have any conservation restriction on it.
So it was just deeded to the town.
This is the
It's
town.
deeded to the town, which there's other land like that too. Like I think the dump was in that like it's not the only parcel.
And is
like
that still what it says in the parcel ownership? It's just the city,
The
it's
town.
not.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's why in Mass Mapper, it doesn't actually show up as protected
yeah.
open space because it's not.
Okay.
That's partially why the town the city considered putting a dog park on it at one point. The city theoretically, could do something like build a school on it, right? Not that but I'm just
Not sure about topography, but yeah.
but yes,
Theoretically.
theoretically. So I'm just sort of saying if that's its
Right.
current use class, which is something the commission could also consider.
But it is also in the open space plan as open space, right? Didn't we find a reference to it last time?
It is. Yep, it's in the open space plan as open space.
So it seems like that's been its assumed characterization.
Right,
For
which
some
is
time.
why that I'm proceeding, and
Yeah.
the planning director assumed, gave her confirmation that it's safe to assume that given that it is currently a wood lot that's undeveloped, that's, naturalized, that conservation commission overseeing it makes sense as
Okay.
far as the city goes.
Okay.
So
And they're called Sanborn.
Sanborn.
Thank you.
Fire
There you go.
I
insurance.
knew I wasn't quite right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Did you find where to just?
Well,
look at
they
them?
have them at the Library of Congress. They also have their own website, sanbornfiremaps.com.
Okay, awesome.
I don't know which is.
I'll do some research. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Okay. This is the video. We don't need to watch it, but he starts by being like, I am in the middle of nowhere.
There you go.
Western Massachusetts.
That's what my family says about
Um,
too.
but anyways.
I mean, we're 90 miles from Boston. It's practically the movie.
So this is Oliver Street. This is the Oliver Street parcel behind the cyclist.
Yeah, I think that's the world champion woman.
That's what it looks like, the most of the parcel. And then wherever you see this gravel, this is off of the commission's parcel. This is sand on private property that's adjacent to the parcel, where the cyclists have permission to ride. So just on the topic of next steps around signage, I did a little bit of digging about Easthampton, about our current signage for conservation areas, and the ones that, as we sort of started talking at the last meeting, were there's the Borkowski sign, there's the Mount Tom North is our newest sign, so that has those like 3 panels or perhaps even 4 panels that's visible from East Street as you drive by. And the one that I thought was perhaps the model that maybe we should move towards for this site and future sites. Let me just pull it up. I was thinking the Gustina sign, at least in terms of size.
Okay.
Did you say Gustina?
Gustina, that's the Conservation Commission owned parcel off of Brook Street.
Okay.
Just pull it up.
That's the one that is Brook Street off of Hendrick?
Yes. Yeah. So it's this sign, which is the one that Commissioner Buttrick was referring to.
Yeah, that magic C that was really bizarre.
So I guess I'm just gonna, express that I don't think we should copy this image. I have some thoughts about that. Pascalina, the arts and culture coordinator, works with a graphic designer who's relatively new in the field, and I believe that would give the commission a fair deal on a design of a sign. But I like the relative size. So this is a 3x3 square. And I like this idea of having it hang on one of those. I personally don't believe we need a sign as big as like the Mount Tom North sign. People know where they're going when they're coming to this. But just something visible like this. And we could have something hanging off the bottom here too.
Can you just zoom in on it?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
So I know last time the commission talked, we went back and forth about whether or not to do like a pilot sign or whether or not to start a larger sign project that could be funded by the CPA. I did a little bit more research and found, so the Conservation Commission has money in the open space account that it has not used since, I think 2016 was the last time that money was used. And it's enough to fund a pilot sign if we wanted to do a pilot sign at Oliver Street and to pay Pascalina's graphic designer for the design. And I very much get the sense that the cyclists would help us install it if we wanted them to, or the DPW probably would as well. But it seems there is seems like it would be well within the budget of what is currently in that account. Right.
Yeah, I like the idea of getting some input and help from Pascalina. I think that'd be a great collaboration.
I would never have thought that was a C for conservation.
Totally. Yeah, I really don't think we need to replicate this design.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then with the commission's permission, I will use that account that we have, this open space account, to move forward with contracting with Pascalina's graphic designer. Her name's Olive. I don't have her last name. To get a design of a sign for Oliver Street, and then obviously we'll bring it to you all before we move forward beyond that.
Great. Great. I like it.
Yeah, sounds good.
And what, any updates on, we're gonna do some temporary signage?
We were gonna do some temporary signage, and Al Donahue liked the idea of that, just like a temporary laminated sign to the entrance. I haven't drafted it yet, but
Okay.
I'll have that by the next meeting. He also requested a memo on Conservation Commission letterhead indicating that hikers and cyclists are both allowable usages on
With the
website.
thinking that they would carry that with them in case, or?
With the thinking that, yeah, if he had an opportunity to politely interact with
Gotcha.
the hiker, that could happen with, the support of the Conservation Commission without anything further.
Yeah, I think that's consistent with what we discussed last time.
Great. Awesome. All right.
I'll just say again, I'm very excited that we're actually doing things with our open space properties now that you're on board, so thank you.
I am too. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I guess one other thought, and we're away from this, but we're a little ways away from this, but so I did speak with Garrett extensively about signage. Pascomic has a very unified signage system, and they really prefer the use of a plastic sign for longevity purposes, and they use both plastic signs and plastic posts. When I spoke with Al Donahue about it, he was like, well, I have all this wood and I know a sign guy. He was like, what if he was like, we should have wood signs, all of the other Conservation Commission signs. This one's metal on wood posts.
Huh, okay.
Yeah. We're not, we don't have to make a decision on that now, but I think it's something that the commission can keep thinking about what we want the material to look like, how we want it to be, things like that.
Yeah. And it may flow somewhat from what the design looks like too.
Yes, and what's possible. Yeah, for sure. But we're really starting from scratch here. Like Pascomic has a very unified image of what all their signs look like.
Yeah.
We have an image in our head.
Sure.
Well, it'd be cool to have us do the same.
Precisely, right. So we'll be making a decision moving forward.
Yeah.
With the knowledge that we're not going to replace the Mount Tom North trailhead sign anytime soon, but that's kind of in a different category. It's it's maintained by the Parks Department at this point. So it's in sort of its own wheelhouse.
Yeah. Excellent. Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to compliance updates.
I just have one more open.
Oh, sorry, Sarah.
Question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you hear back from Natural Heritage yet
I have-
about?
Yeah, I have not. I followed back up. They said they're working on it. They're backlogged,
Okay.
but yeah. Compliance updates. Okay. Just running through the list. B, Lathrop Community of Easthampton. I can't recall if I already updated the commission on this, but so at risk of saying it again, the CPA committee funded this invasive species removal project that the Conservation Commission permitted several years ago. They funded it now in full. So through year 3, they have a contractor lined up and a plan to move forward with the invasive species
Excellent
treatment.
Who are they working with?
They're working with, do you recall?
Land Stewart Community? No.
No. Hold on.
I think they
I think
had
it's Bay. I think it's at Bay Path Forestry. Do you know them?
I don't.
I can find it.
Did that happen just in this most recent round of CPA funding?
Yes.
Previously, the committee had funded year 1. So this was the final funding of year 2 and 3.
Great.
We kind of held them up with one of the funding years at a time, so they wanted to have the complete funding so they wouldn't get in a position where something didn't happen and they lose their window of time for the treatments and things like that. So.
Yep.
And just as a note for the community too, they're a great example of how CPA projects can ensure long-lasting open space, because part of how in order for them to be eligible for a CPA funding for a project like this, they had to put a conservation restriction, which they didn't previously have on this property. So they did that. Kestrel holds the restriction, and now they've received this funding. Yeah, I think it's Bay Path Forestry.
Okay.
Okay. And moving along. The next update I have for you is on F1 industrial lofts, one Ferry Street, track 2. So this is for, it's all under the project 1 Ferry Street, but this is actually going to be, I believe, 9 Ferry Street, 7 Ferry Street. So just for everyone's understanding that these are all the different ferry streets that are all permitted under 1 Ferry Street. Right. Though we do have track 1 and track 2. So track 2 has not yet been developed. It's everything on the other side of the canal. And Mike Mishan, the developer, reached out about the pre-construction conditions related to the building permit. He was requesting the building permit for the grant funding and financing of the project to show possible grant funders that he had the building permit in hand. But as the commission knows, per the order, the building permit comes after all the other pre-construction requirements have been met, including all the on-site pre-construction conditions. He doesn't actually plan to begin construction, including demolition, until 2026. So he was reticent to do the on-site pre-construction conditions.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Acknowledged that he could do them with understanding that there would be another pre-construction meeting prior to demolition, and then likely another one prior to actual construction, like waves of pre-construction meetings, which the commission's done previously. However, he also, the other pre-construction condition that he flagged was the stormwater bond, and having to have the stormwater bond in hand prior to the building permit being issued. So I wanted to bring that to the commission and basically just ask, you know, per the way the order is written, the building permit is the very last thing that comes. With, for example, for Tasty Top, they gave us a draft of the stormwater bond many months ago, and then didn't actually provide the full signed stormwater bond until right prior to the pre-construction meeting, but it still occurred prior to the pre-construction meeting, prior to the issuing of the building permit.
Are you asking us to change the order?
Well, right. So I guess I think my thought would be that if he wanted that, he would have to request an amendment to the amended order. If he was looking for the building permit out of sequence.
I don't think we've ever done anything like this before.
Yeah.
Remember.
Is there, so I understand the need to show the grant agencies that you're really shovel ready. Is there something, have you talked to the building inspector at all? Is there something the building inspector could issue that basically says like they will receive this as soon as they meet this other thing for which they already have a permit? Like that seems like the thing to try to do, is just show that paper trail.
Okay.
But not necessarily skirt the order.
Okay.
Does that make sense to
Sure.
folks? I mean, it seems like there should be, like, he could do a draft. I don't know if there's such a thing as a draft building permit, but I don't see why there theoretically couldn't be.
Okay.
I want to help the grant situation, but I also don't want to set a precedent for just changing orders on large development projects to put things out of order.
Great. That's a great idea. I'll follow up with the building inspector. Okay. I just was going to call the commission's attention for G to 6973 Loudville Road. That the date we have set is the next meeting to discuss the timing of the removal of the stones in the stormwater basin and the seeding of the banks of the basin. So I will I will remind the developer of that date and request that they come in attendance with a plan for that. The commission maybe recall if there was some pushback about that, so just to expect a larger conversation.
Yep. Could you also, in advance of that next meeting, get out and just get us some fresh photos of what things are looking like?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I did request an as-built back in December. We have not received that of the site.
Right, because there were still also questions about whether grading was as permitted.
Yeah.
It's, next meeting's agenda.
If I was just noticing the one industrial lofts tract 1, it looks like their permit didn't get the auto extension. Is there a reason for that?
That would be a mistake on my part.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. So because you're noticing the 2026.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that date's correct. They failed to request an extension in time, and it was going to be an issue for them. Their permit was set to expire in December of this past year, 2024. And it was going to be an issue for them because they didn't request an extension prior to the expiration of their permit. And then truly that same week, we received that guidance that all permits had been extended by 2 years.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was further than 2 years for some reason.
Just 2 years.
Okay.
Most of our permits, we had a bunch of extensions very recently. So all of our extensions were then extended, which is why we have so many
Okay.
far out dates.
Okay, got it. Yep.
But 2026 is the correct date, and that's our that's our closest expiring permit.
And do they know?
That they got saved?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they sent me that. They sent me a letter saying, look, the governor, which was great for them.
I mean, their work is done. I think we're just in the monitoring period.
I believe that's true.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. We continue to run down the list. 2N, 93, 95, 97 Northampton Street.
Mhm.
So the rest of the Conservation Commission's consultant funds have been received. $81,225 was the amount of the contract that was received by the Conservation Commission a week and a half ago. We have assigned the trespass orders are no longer valid. And the pre-construction meeting was held on April 3rd. And I can show some images of that. Brian Felicki was in attendance, as was the JLN contracting lead who's constructing the bank, though he didn't join us for the full delineation walk. From Weston and Sampson, Sam Moffett, the project head, who's not likely to be out here very often, but is sort of the project manager, and Greg Russo, who's our guy who's going to be giving us monthly reports. We can go ahead and take a look. It was a beautiful day for a site walk.
Right.
This was Thursday morning at 8 a.m. The commissioners were great sports about that. We're a little out of order here. So we're all the way at the back of the field. Their erosion controls had been freshly
Tuned up.
cleaned up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And those are towed in.
They're
Yes.
towed in all the way along. So here we're walking a place like this we discussed, and Greg Russo noted the buildup of some sediment already along here. We discussed with Brian that, they placed the erosion and sediment controls exactly where they were going to be, where they were marked on the plan per GPS. But we discussed that some in-field movement might be needed to push these further up the slope, like up on level ground here. Also in like a location like this, where we're sort of halfway down the slope.
Yep.
Luckily for the commission and for the citizens of Easthampton, there's going to be so many eyes on these erosion and sediment controls.
And go back for a second.
Yep.
What is the water that we're seeing already flowing towards that?
This was identified as runoff from the field. It's not
There's
delineated.
no evidence of a channel there. It's just,
It's flow coming off from, I mean, we'd had like, you know, a quarter inch of rain that day. It was flow coming off of the field, but
okay.
not a more clearly marked channel than that.
Okay.
And the commission did have an ANRAD done of this property.
Right.
There
Yeah.
was an ANRAD done.
Yep.
So here we are.
Yeah, these are really kind of oddly located.
Yep, for sure. That was definitely, I definitely noted that. So we're standing here on the opposite bank. Where Brian is pointing here is where the eventual crossing will be constructed. So we went down there to go take a look at that. If you see this pink pole, that's where the road is going to come down. You can almost see, oh yeah, you can almost see.
Like one edge of the road.
This is the edge of the road right here. There are some pink poles that go off into the distance, into the field.
Okay.
And then this is where the road will come down. Around that pink pole is where it should make contact with the ground.
Okay.
And we discussed.
So that pink stake in the back is where the abutment will be? No, the abutment is much closer.
Yeah, the abutment is
Basically right at the, yeah, I remember thinking it was very close.
Right. Okay. Here we are at the existing crossing, the unpermitted crossing. And we can look down to where this is that same pink stake. So we're looking, it's, what would you say? 20 yards, 15 yards?
15.
And that's downstream?
That's downstream.
The channel looks quite different than the last time we were.
A lot more water.
Yeah, it was
Maybe
rushing.
that's what it is, yeah.
Because
I remember there being sort of a funky little island of sediment and stuff there that I don't see now.
Yeah, the channel was certainly rushing when we were there.
Okay. Which tracks with everything that we heard about this system in the review process. It doesn't take much to get it charging.
Mhm.
I believe that's the end of my images.
Okay.
So I plan to be out there as often as I can be with Gregory, as long as he doesn't do his site visits on Fridays. And we'll receive a monthly report from him. He'll be also reviewing the stormwater reports produced by the Sage Engineering team.
And how often is he going out?
Monthly.
Okay.
Until the construction of the crossing.
And then he'll be there daily.
And then he'll be there daily for the entire length of time of the construction. Sage Engineering intends the crossing to occur this season. And we discussed that they should have, you know, a few weeks notice so that Weston and Sampson can plan for Greg to be out there.
Yep. Okay. What is the green in the front? Did you happen to take a look? Is that just grass?
I think it
Might
is
just be
grass.
grass. Yeah.
Okay.
Looked almost like Tussock. That's how you're.
I remember in past seasons, definitely there's the first green that comes up along here was always invasive. So I'm just curious now that we've done some treatment, what it's going to do this year.
Right.
But that's not anything.
I don't think so. As the commission knows, you know, we can enter the site anytime. I mean, once active construction's going on, obviously be aware. But so the commission never has specific things you would like me to go check, you know, regardless of whether or not Greg is going out there. It can also occur.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if you could try to get out at least one other time in the month on a different week to check on erosion control something. How long does it take to walk the whole erosion control barrier line?
It's about a mile, the erosion control barrier line, once you make the walk back, like, so like down and around. Okay. And Sage Engineering definitely prefers for notification, though it's not required per the order, and I imagine the commission at times would prefer that I go without notification, or, yeah.
Forecast is for quite a bit of rain Thursday and Friday this week. So yeah, maybe a week from now, it's time to go.
What are they, other than right up near the front, what you can see from the road, what do they have in terms of disturbance so far?
What are they starting with? Right, so they're planning on, so the bank construction, which you're describing, which is right up near the road, it's the first physical structure that's planned to be built on site. Most of my memory is that most of the initial stage, this season's work on the site is going to be infrastructure work along the site,
Power, whatever.
Right, and all of their stormwater, right?
And their stormwater, yes, right,
Which is all over the place.
which is all over the place. Yeah. And we did review, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So, yeah.
You said roots would be this year too.
Yes, and then later this year, they intend to build a daycare, which is sort of tucked in the corner. That's closer to the
Because I think
wetland.
they have to be out of the place they are, maybe out now and where they were over by the church.
There's a daycare in town currently that is
Mhm.
moving. Yeah.
Okay.
And we did look at their storm, so they have one stormwater basin, one infiltration basin that is far from where they're currently planning on disturbing, that is not fenced off yet. But we spoke about that they would fence it off as construction moved closer to it. And then the rest of their stormwater features are detention basins, which I checked in with the engineer, the city's engineer, about. She agreed that they don't need to be fenced because they're detention basins.
Yeah, I mean, they should be going down, and anything flowing should head towards them.
Right. I
rather
mean,
than
prior to construction.
Right.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stormwater presumably is gonna run into the
Yes.
depression rather than away from it. Right. If they're doing it right.
Right. I mean too, though, for soil compaction, that we want them to not drive over their.
Oh, yeah,
infiltration
okay,
basin,
gotcha.
But we don't, which the way that it's currently written in the order, it refers to all stormwater features be fenced off to prevent soil compaction, which I think is something perhaps we should consider changing in our standard order to only infiltration basins be fenced off to prevent soil compaction prior to construction.
And it'll help with the rain gardens and things too.
True. So rain gardens and infiltration basins.
Yeah.
It's something to think about.
Yeah.
And it's actually going to come up again in another active project update. So
Okay.
we can talk about it actively. But the city engineer's recommendation was that detention basins don't need to be prevented from soil compaction.
I don't have enough experience with that to know the answer. I'd be interested to see if Dan agrees.
Mhm.
Could be something we asked him about. But yeah, so that's what's planned for this year. Just from the city's perspective, they're waiting on a sewer sign off. So I believe, I actually didn't check in with my coworkers this morning, but I believe there's one more outstanding piece in the city, but I'm not.
They were gonna
sure.
talk offline on how to solve that issue, so we weren't
Yep.
involved.
Okay. Great. Is that for the line they have to tie in that goes across the abutting property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to tie into the street and what size it has to be to tie
Yeah.
into the street. And,
Right, there's two sewer connections that they're talking about making, one in the back closer to the Manhan and one in the front closer to crossing Northampton Street.
If they can't get the one in the back,
They're not,
they can't get a right of way for the one in the back, then they'll have to send it all through the one.
you could pump it uphill to that or something crazy like that.
Right. But again, I actually did not confirm with my colleagues today, so I'm not sure if that has been settled.
Okay.
Great. That's That's all I have on Tasty Talk.
Okay.
Moving down the line, O, Easthampton Housing Authority. So the tree removal on this site has occurred. We had one pre-construction site meeting prior to tree removal, and we'll have another one shortly. So you all will receive the invite to that once I know the date and time for it. This is the contractor sent me images of the tree removal. I did receive a couple calls from nearby residents just expressing distress. And questions about specific trees. There were some questions if they removed, I think, extra trees along this boundary. From what I could tell from the plan, it seemed they removed the trees as indicated, but it's not super clear. So, this is another site that has a detention basin. So its stormwater system is a detention basin. And just pull up the map real quick. So we were discussing the things they needed to do prior to our second pre-construction meeting. And this right here is stormwater bioretention area. Initially, we had been speaking about it, and I suggested that they have that fenced per the order to prevent soil compaction. They requested not to fence it.
That's not a detention basin though, it's bioretention, so it should be a filtration.
Fenced. Okay, great.
That was my recollection of what their design was anyways. Typically bioretention is an infiltration system.
Okay, great.
Unless it was lined, but I don't think it was.
I will communicate that to them.
Do you have the detail real quick? Keep going. I think it had its own. Yeah.
Do not compact. Yep, there you go.
Perfect.
Great. I will communicate that to them. So they did need to remove trees in that area, right? So obviously some compaction did occur, and I recall us talking about that at the tree removal conversation where we were like, well, we want you to fence this, and they were like, well, we have to remove the trees. So this is just noting for the commission that there's some push and pull here.
Yeah. Yep.
But for further construction,
Right. They shouldn't be driving back and forth over that area.
right, it should be fenced off except when they're constructing it.
Otherwise, it's not going to work for them. So
Yeah.
it's in their own best interest to keep out of it.
Great. And it should be fenced for our pre-construction site meeting. Great. Thank you all for reviewing that. All right, that's all I got on O. And on R, 109 Everett Street.
I will just
Oh,
real
yeah.
quick, Ava. I don't think that we specify any particular type of fencing. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't need to be something fancy or expensive as long as it keeps the equipment out and they know where not to go.
Right.
So
Okay.
that could be as simple as snow fencing as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Okay. Great. All right. Any other comments on Easthampton Housing Authority, Allen Street? 109 Everett Street, just the only update I have for you there is that the work is resumed on site and our weekly stormwater reports have also resumed.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed it looked like there was a lot going on there.
Yeah. So continue taking looks periodically at that site, but our sediment made it through the winter. Yeah, it was a cold winter. All right, and our newest addition to the active projects we discussed last time, having an RDA/DOA project updates. Just from a, I guess, point of order perspective, the public comment at the beginning referred to these projects. Moving forward, would the commission like those comments about an RDA to be under this section from the public?
That's an interesting question.
And I guess also on the agenda, would the commission like me to update that stat line with the RDA? If there is an RDA, I think we might discuss or that I plan to discuss. Should I include that line description of the RDA?
What did we, I know we wanted to put this one on there, so we remembered to come back to it and check in on it. Were we thinking that we were going to list everything we issue as an RDA? I don't think that was our intent. I think we were just going to kind of list the ones that we wanted to remember to keep checking in.
Okay, so not the ones, but I guess when we have one that we've issued and then I have an update on it, previously I had brought those up as their own agenda item under general business.
Yeah.
Would you prefer them to stay there rather than get sort of added on here?
I would say unless something's come up that you feel like this is something we're going to want to come back to regularly, I would just keep doing it the way you have been.
Okay, great.
And I guess, what do people think about when, like, my sense was that the woman making the public comment on that project didn't really know that there was an open permit for it, so wouldn't have known that it was an agenda item. Wasn't here with the intent of speaking to an agenda item, which typically means a hearing. So how do folks feel about where that should have occurred versus where it did? Any opinions? As long as it's not a public hearing, I think it's up to us because it's not a big law situation.
Correct.
Yeah. For some of these, again, just thinking of the lady coming here today, would it make sense to try to take this up earlier in the meeting? That way, people coming here to comment on a particular issue, which doesn't fall under.
But you don't know what they're going to come in and comment on.
Well, fair enough. I was just, thinking, do it earlier in the meeting and then they say their piece and then they have the opportunity to leave if they so choose. Is that?
Which is kind of how the public comment, non-agenda item public comment section is already structured, right?
True. Yes.
So we could keep comments like the one that was made tonight in that section.
Yeah.
I think unless we're like having a much larger attention on something that we could say we need to wait until we get to that point on the agenda. I think if it's just kind of something we're tracking, it makes sense to.
It'd be kind of tough for a person to have to hang around all the way to tea.
Yeah.
To talk about what you want to talk about tonight. So that's not.
Name your public agenda item. I mean, to name your non-agenda item when you think it's not an agenda item. To just be able to name it and move on.
Yeah, so maybe the public hearings are really the agenda items and then other things we can be more flexible on.
Yeah.
Just to easier for people to come and go.
Because otherwise, every time somebody comes and makes a public comment like that, then we have to say, stop, don't make your comment. We're going to have to first agree to take an item out of order. Does everyone agree? And then vote on it and then have them continue their comment.
This is more of an update, right? This is not really.
It's not I mean, it's an agenda item and it's on the agenda, but it's not a hearing that requires us to have everything in a confined discussion once we've opened the hearing and before we close it. And we can always, I mean, I think Yeah, I guess I'm inclined to leave things the way they are. We could have always said, we're gonna talk about that later.
Or the commission could have decided to take that of order.
Right.
Yes, we can do that. We can always do that.
Yeah, I think we're okay the way we are. If it starts becoming a regular thing where we're having people coming in to comment on things that are on
We're
our
gonna talk
ongoing
about
project
multiple
list, maybe we
times.
revisit, but.
Okay, so the update I have on it is that, per the commission's suggestion last time, I went back to Beth and she returned with a drier and more shade tolerant seed mix.
Zoom in, please, online.
And so, just because I knew that they were trying to move on this, I approved this seed mix, but I know that NEF is going to closely monitor the survival of their seed, their revegetation attempts, for the slope.
Yeah.
And on that note, they did, plant the sycamores today.
Oh, good.
And spread the seed along all the disturbed soils down to the river's edge. Do you want to take a public comment on this?
This is a seed mix?
This is the seed mix.
We've got a fern there. Ferns don't have seeds. Now, is that a technicality? But
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that, but this is coming from New England Wetland Plants that.
it's a plant list, but it's not a seed list.
Well, I think this is in there. I mean, I believe that this is the composition of.
Perhaps the mix has spores in it. I don't know how they're accomplishing that. It is an interesting point that you make. I don't know, but generally New England Wetland Plants knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I
So
know, but I'm just saying, I
Yeah.
don't think they intend to. They have a mix that includes seeds of these plants. Or is it, this is the planting mix? Is it right?
No,
no, this is a seed mix. This is to be cast
Okay.
about. I don't know the answer to your question.
Okay. I've never heard of propagating ferns by spores.
Yeah, I don't.
Typically,
I don't
you
know.
would
transplant them,
transplant the particularly sensitive fern,
the little guys.
which has the rhizomes and
Yeah.
easy dips.
Apparently you can do it either way, spores or rhizomes.
Okay.
I'm also not sure still that I see some of these being happy on that slope, but maybe at different portions of it, they'll take. I mean, certainly you do sometimes see. I don't know. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Right.
It's a bit of an experiment.
Mhm.
The intent in having them revise it was just that they weren't going to waste their money on a bunch of things that didn't grow. So
Correct.
we'll see what happens.
Totally. And Beth invited me to go take a look at the site, which, prior approval to visit the site was part of our
Yep.
overall agreement. So upon that invitation, I will go take a look at the plantings, and so I'll have some images for the commission at our next meeting.
Nice.
The
Do you know
other,
how many sycamores they planted? I can't remember what the plan was.
I think the plan was like 30 or something in that range, but she did not indicate in her most
Okay.
recent email from today. The other notes from Beth that she says it appears our signs and blockages are keeping most people out. We're considering further closure / obstruction along the road frontage parking areas. I'll keep you informed about those plans. And as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, they are announcing a community walk and spring cleanup day on the May 17th, which commissioners, of course, are welcome to attend to reintroduce the public to the Mineral Street entrance and those trails through the previously logged areas.
Is that a weekend day?
That's a Saturday. Yep. And that's all I have on open projects.
Thank you. Moving on to general business, I think we have meeting minutes to accept from March 24th. Is that correct?
That's
Did
correct,
someone-
yes, we did.
Has everybody who wanted to had a chance to review?
I read them.
Yes.
Any comments beyond edits that have already been made?
He's happy, I'm happy.
Do we have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept 3:24:25 minutes with whatever edits from Commissioner Office.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Anything to update on the progress of the wetlands ordinance making its way through various reviewers?
Nothing to update on.
Okay. Exempt herbicide application along railroad notice.
Totally. Just got a couple, we got a couple sort of quick things under here. So this is the annual 2025 yearly operational plan along the railroad next to the river.
Or 50 feet of,
Your 50 feet of
So this is
railroad,
coming from the railroad's consultant, is that?
Yes.
Okay,
who happens to live in Leeds.
got it.
So these are the herbicides that'll be sprayed.
Oh, they do it by,
They'd mount it on the tracks.
huh, I didn't realize that. It probably says that every year, but I've never caught that piece. All right.
All right. Okay, and just a couple other quick notes for the commission. The State House extended the hybrid/remote meeting policy to June of 2027. So that was set to expire at the end of March, and the State House extended that prior to the expiration.
And that just means that we are allowed to
So the
have
commi-
hybrid meetings? I forget.
So
what the word-
hybrid meetings are allowed, I think would have been allowed to continue, could have continued to be allowed until like without this extension, but the commission would have to reach quorum in the room. So having remote commissioners count for a
Quorum.
quorum is what is relevant here.
Okay,
So that's rarely an issue for the commission,
sure.
but just a note
Okay.
about that. And on the topic of quorum, it was just reminded for me, we had 3 commissioners at the Tasty Top pre-construction meeting, but that we should stay under quorum for pre-construction for site meetings.
Right.
So when it comes up that we should have more commissioners, that more commissioners want to attend, we'll have to stagger them.
I would have sacrificed not standing in the rain and gone home
Would have done that for everybody else.
for the team.
Very magnanimous.
And obviously it's important for the commission to, we should just, that's open meeting law. And we'll just follow that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, Jay would have gone home. so.
Yeah, see.
Just some other general business notes. I was reached out to by some master's students at UMass Amherst who are interested in producing a restoration plan for a final project for one of our ponds. I referred them to Rubber Thread, thinking about its culvert connection to Williston Pond, which we just permitted, and thinking that we have quite a bit of information about Nashawanek Pond. I did reach out, I don't think I updated the commission on this, but I reached out after we had been talking about pond management plans, lake management plans around Williston Pond. I reached out to the Nashawanek Pond Steering Committee about whether or not Nashawanek Pond had a pond management committee, had a pond management plan, had a lake management plan, and received like so much information, basically detailing why. From Gary.
Yes.
Receiving so much information going back to the 70s,
Right.
detailing why a lake management plan would be really redundant
And then
with,
you were sorry you asked.
with all of the information that they had. So I'm meeting with the students this week, but I guess I wanted to open it up to the commission just to see if there's anything in particular. I don't, I think this is a plan. I think it's a project that they're going to do
Sure.
between now and the end of the semester. So
Mhm.
small in scope, but
Mhm.
I thought perhaps it could be useful for them to do assessment of some of the watershed pieces of it, and then could share their work with.
There have been, so the city did some work some water quality sampling a couple years ago.
Yep.
And then there was a Smith College class, do you know about this?
No.
That did a senior design studio, I think around Riverfed Pond.
Okay, I'll look for that.
My colleague was involved in mentoring them. So there's some stuff that already has been done that may feed into what they're thinking.
Do you know what year that was from?
I think that design studio was just last year. It was either last year or the year before, but I think it was last year. Maybe in the fall semester? No, it would have been the spring if they were senior design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And was Cassie involved with that? Like, should I find that? I'll be able to find that in her files.
I'm not sure that she was.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if, I know the mayor talked to them at some point, coincidentally, but I'm not sure if city staff were really directly involved in it. It may have just been they were given permission to do it. And it was kind of a sidebar Smith thing.
Okay. Nashwater Pond Committee not involved either?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I can give you more details of who to talk to.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly if I'm not likely to find something. with
Yeah,
the city
I'm really
files
not
and
sure.
stuff.
I wasn't involved in it.
Okay. Great. Now, some information. I'm meeting with those students on Wednesday. It'd be great to have some more background. I also, of course, told them they could do a restoration plan for Nashwater, but they'd have to wade through 50 years of very data.
Yeah, he has just a ridiculous amount of information. It's like,
Well, he had students working on
Yeah.
it, so he's got a whole
Yeah.
team of people behind him.
right. Every time he comes in to give us an update, it's
Right.
like, there's so much.
Here's the lab results for 50 years.
Wild. Yeah.
Right. On that topic, there has been more just discussion that I've been fielding about that NOI for that pond embankment structure that was presented to the commission just as a heads up in the fall is likely to come.
Oh, the one on where they want to repair one of the wooden.
Yes, one of the wooden
Yeah.
But there'll be a dewatering process and they have to get in the pond for the construction.
Which one is it? I was actually out on the pond last weekend and was trying to remember which one it was because there's several that are in pretty bad shape.
Totally.
But it was just one, right? That they were
Just
looking at?
one, yep.
Is it the one closest to the polar plunge?
No, it's not that one. That one that's like pretty close right out there, the city hall. Yeah.
Polar plunge.
There was.
It's part of Winterfest.
Huh, I didn't know that. I've never actually made it to
We'll just sign
Winterfest.
you up next year.
Yeah, maybe some of all of our commissioners should do the polar
Oh my
plunge.
gosh.
I.
You can lead, Ava.
We got engaged. Can't do it with you guys.
You should only do it if he buys you a life insurance.
Then he might do it.
Little observation deck is looking a little tired there too.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, that
they-
one's
they had
closed
that roped off.
It was roped off, but the tape is falling down.
Yeah, but still, I mean, there's no supports in the front side by the pond
Right.
side.
So it's this one.
Okay,
Does that ring a bell for you?
yeah, I recognize it.
Accessible from the upland from Nonotuck, like if you're walking that
Yeah.
outer loop.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it's one of the ones that's deeper into the park.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is like from the side.
Sure.
Okay. Yep.
But I think there was another one they were doing.
It was just this one, but there's like 4 or 5 of them and
Yeah. Oh,
none
yeah.
of them are in great shape.
Right,
This is the location.
Okay.
sure, yeah.
Got it.
Right on the edge.
Oh, right on that. Okay. Yep.
On the point.
Yeah.
And we'll review, I received this recently, but this will be part of the GZA study. It'll be part of the NOI review. So more to come.
Okay.
Great. Okay. So that was my only thought on that. I received information about the Association of Massachusetts Wetland Scientists is holding a free conflict of interest training on April 17th. Just wanted to make you all aware of that in case any of you wanted to go. The link is in the ongoing projects updates. And I guess lastly, just on the event notice, I'm collaborating with Pascalina and our new sustainability coordinator, Sophie. So the city now has a full-time sustainability coordinator. She works under DPW. And she's taken on the pieces of Cassie's role that were sustainability focused. So
Okay.
the like EVs and the bees committee and the climate action plan and all of those components are now within her jurisdiction. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'm happy to send them her way. But
What is her name again?
her name's Sophie Pronto. But the three of us are, and you know, under the planning department are holding a art in the garden event on June 7th, which will be a staging of local artist pieces in host gardens within walking distance of Cottage Street. So more information to come, but
Okay.
just letting you all know.
How did you get hooked up with that?
Do you have a garden within
do.
walking distance of
Yeah.
Cottage Street? Great. Yeah, I'll send you the form.
All right, interesting.
That's
What is
also
considered walking distance?
feel like within half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. We're still in early
In development.
formation stages. Yeah, but
Nice.
Yeah. that's all I got for you.
All right.
What else?
And we have a motion to adjourn.
I move that the Conservation Commission adjourn its meeting.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is 8:08. We are concluding this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.